We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation. Those are the actual words of the least believable vice president in history today in the Oval Office when his plans for a meeting at the vice president's residence tonight to talk about the Epstein situation leaked so widely, including to NBC News, that James David Vance had to deny that he was planning a meeting to talk about the Epstein situation. He didn't deny the meeting. He simply said, we're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation. Every meeting is about the Epstein situation. Every Trump event and every Trump meeting, Trump administration meeting, Trump White House meeting is about the Epstein situation. Everything Donald Trump and everyone in his White House is doing all day, every day now is about the Epstein situation. It's about how to extract Donald Trump from his personal history with child rapist Jeffrey Epstein, who said, quote, I was Donald's closest friend for 10 years. That meeting in the Oval Office today where Donald Trump said he was going to impose an illegal, unconstitutional 100% tariff on computer chips was about the Epstein situation. It was about distracting attention from the Epstein situation. And it worked with almost all the White House reporters in the room who were allowed to ask questions. 33 questions were allowed from the White House press corps in that room, and exactly 4 of them were about the Epstein situation. Actually, 2 questions, each with a follow-up, which is really 2 questions about the Trump situation, because there is no Epstein situation. Jeffrey Epstein is dead. And as long as Donald Trump is alive, Donald Trump should face questions and suspicions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And the White House press corps should unite in its pursuit of answers to those questions. But the current White House press corps has no idea how to do that. The current White House press corps is mostly lost. And so each time Donald Trump was asked about Jeffrey Epstein today, the next reporter asking a question immediately changed the subject, which is exactly what Donald Trump wanted that reporter to do, exactly what Donald Trump is counting on from those reporters. We have never had a more reliably weak White House press corps when presenting questions to a president of the United States. Catherine Lucy of Bloomberg asked a good question about Jeffrey Epstein with a quick follow-up. And Nancy Cortez of CBS asked a question about Ghislaine Maxwell, a good question, meeting with Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer with a quick follow-up. And not another reporter in the room asked a question about Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell or Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell or Ghislaine Maxwell being switched to a low security prison, which she was not qualified to be transferred to, and which is now involving extra expense for taxpayers because the security at that prison had to be enhanced simply because that one sex criminal has arrived at that prison. The only sex criminal ever to be assigned to that low security prison. Robert Hood, a former Bureau of Prisons chief of internal affairs, told NBC News in an email that, quote, Maxwell's transfer to the camp in Bryan is a travesty of justice. To relocate a sex offender serving 20 years to a country club setting is offensive to victims and others serving similar crimes, wrote Hood. 28 questions by the White House press corps today were not about that, had nothing to do with that. And not one of those 28 questions got an answer from Donald Trump that illuminated anything. Not one of the 28 questions got an answer from Donald Trump.
Trump is taking a massive loss because people are speaking, people who were part of the reason Epstein and Maxwell were taken down in court. They are saying, do not trust Trump, do not trust Maxwell, don't trust their deal. Or they're saying to Trump, some of them, you can't trust Maxwell. She's lying. She's not an honest or forthright person. So why should we believe her now? And it's such a big loss for Trump because the plan isn't working. Look, I guess maybe things could change, but there was so much optimism from MAGA around Trump on this. They really felt he was going to expose all the sickos, right? They really, really felt he was going to do that. And then, lo and behold, none of this is coming out. He says, oh, there's nothing to see here. Actually, all the mainstream media claims were true. Close your eyes, cover your ears, just bury your head in the sand. And MAGA wouldn't accept it, right? They wouldn't accept that. And then now it comes out that, Trump his lawyer had a meeting with her, and then she apparently in that meeting cleared him of any wrongdoing. And you might expect in the past you would have expected MAGA to just use that moment and wrap it all up and say, we're done here. The story's over. We don't give a damn anymore. If the monster lady who no one believed before says Trump is innocent, then all of a sudden she is the most trustworthy woman in human history, and we believe her. It's not happening this time. It's not happening this time. I cannot stress how we've never seen this before. Trump's fought with MAGA before about vaccines. He's fought with them about the H-1B visa. Those things were peppered over in a matter of days. This will not go away.